Hi everyone, and welcome to another edition of Enjoy Beekeeping. I've got the bees in the observation beehive and I'm about to show you just how far they've progressed since April 5th. And wait till you see how far the bees have gotten. All right, well, before I show you just how far the bees have progressed in 22 days, I just want to give you a little bit of backstory about the bees that are living in this observation beehive. If you're new to the channel, one of the things I like about observation beehives is the kind that I build are the type that a colony of bees can live in all year round. It's not a show and tell hive. It could be. You'd have to plug the hole and take it somewhere and do a little presentation. You could do that with this, but this is really meant to be an educational tool, and I keep it right here in the area that we use as our classroom when we do bee schools here at the farm. And one of the things about this particular colony is I caught them back in March. They were out in my plum tree, and we've had a really unusual spring here in northeast Georgia. Usually it gets pretty warm right around March, and this year it started to go in that direction, but then we would get these cold spells. And when I say cold for us is maybe about freezing temperatures. So it would get to freezing on some nights kind of late in the spring, later than usual. And it's been like that all spring. And right now, today is April 27th, and we've had that highs and lows going on all year. So we've had an early spring, but we've been dealing with a lot of these cold snaps. And I caught this swarm on a day that wasn't too bad. It was kind of cool but not cold, and as I was capturing them, the temperatures were dropping rapidly. It was getting close to dark. So one thing that I did was I used this styrofoam insulation to help keep the bees warm, because what wound up happening was I got the swarm out of the tree and I used a tarp and I dumped them on a tarp after I vacuumed them out of the tree. I've got one of these handy bee vacuums. So I dumped them on the tarp. They started to march in, but then the temperatures dropped so much that the cluster was broken to two. One colony, but two different clusters, and they would not move because the temperatures dropped so fast. It got down to about 55, 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and they didn't want to move. So I wound up leaving them outside overnight and tried to get them back all together. And it took actually, it wound up taking about 3 days total for that, for the two clusters to unite. But anyway, let's go ahead and do the reveal because I know that's what you're here for. So here they are, and this is 22 days worth of progress so far. And there they are. So the last video that I shot, the bees were working on this top section here. So there's a total of 9 frames in the observation beehive. So they were working on the top 3. And they had this pretty well built out, and they were about to hatch their first brood cycle. So they're past that now, and the population has drastically gone up. And they've been hard at work, and you can see they're pretty well complete in the middle 3 frames. And they're also chaining up towards the entrance right now. They're building the final 3 frames. So let's zoom in and we'll have a closer look at all that. So you can see the dark brood that's ready to hatch. It's cap brood ready to hatch, and they've gone through a cycle now, and they're working on their second cycle. And here's more brood and fresh drawn comb. It's almost complete here. You can see they haven't quite reached towards the bottom yet, but they're getting close. And then if you go down just one more level, there's a lot of chained bees here. The chain gang is working on new comb here. So they should have this built out. I have a good feeling they're going to build out in just a couple more weeks, if not sooner. So one of the things I really love about having an observation beehive is that on days like this, and in fact we're in for about a 4-day spell of rain, it gives me a real good snapshot of what's going on outside in the rest of the beehives. So I don't have to go outside on a cold, dreary, damp day. The bees wouldn't want you in their hive anyway on a day like today. I find that this really does help me. First of all, it's fun to open a beehive. There's probably no better thing for a beekeeper than to open up a hive, lift up a frame and just look at all the activity that's going on. If you happen to see the queen walking around, that's always cool too. But this really does satisfy a lot of that, and you don't have to disturb the bees at all, and you can just allow them to do their thing, and you can enjoy watching them, and it really does give you a good idea of what's happening outside in the bee yard. So I want to just talk to you just a little bit about the buildup that you see here. So springtime is the buildup, and here in Northeast Georgia we have a really nice spring honey flow, and it starts late February into March. It's just phenomenal, and April is prime time to catch swarms here in Northeast Georgia. So it's really exciting at this time of the year. But the thing I was mentioning to you is that we had an early spring, and one of the things I'm wondering is, are we going to have an early dearth? So the dearth is when all the blossoms have pretty much peaked and withered away and everything's green, but there's not that much for the bees to forage. That usually starts for us around the first week of June. Well, here we are, we're not even finished with the month of April, and one of the last things that we get to bloom during our strong honey flow is privet hedge. So privet hedge is considered to be invasive. You don't have to plant it, it just grows, and it really does grow well along fence lines, and it has a really fragrant tiny white flower, and you can just walk outside and you can smell the sweetness in the air. It's great, and the bees love it too. And this is the time when they will make a lot of honey, and they'll pack it in really big. But it also signals that you've got about 1 or 2 weeks left to the strong honey flow, and then it just kind of dries up from there. So that usually doesn't happen for us until late May. Well, now this is late April, so I'm wondering how the bees are going to fare. That's something that we're going to watch. You know, maybe there will be something there for them to forage, or maybe because of the cooler temperatures, some of the blooms that we're seeing now will continue because the cool weather will allow them to. I'm not sure. So I'm going to have to monitor that. Every year is different. So sometimes you'll have a cold, rainy spring, and sometimes you'll have a hot, dry spring, and the bees will respond accordingly. And one of the things that I'm doing with this particular colony is I'm breaking one of my rules. Okay, you guys who know me know that I don't recommend feeding bees unless you really have to. I'm cheating. I'm cheating. I'm breaking one of my own rules. And the only reason why this jar is here, by the way, this is not sugar water, it's honey water. So I think in the last video I showed you how I mixed some honey water. So I'm feeding them some honey water because I know we've got a 4-day cycle of rain and cold temperatures. So the bees are really not going to be able to forage. So I'm kind of giving them a hand, but I just want you to know that I'm very judicious about my use of this. This is not here all day, every day. This is only here because I'm trying to build them up just a little bit more. Even though we're in a strong flow, there's plenty out there for them to forage, but they're going to have about a 4-day layover until the weather clears up again. So I went and I mixed a jar of honey water for them so that they can continue to draw that comb. Because one thing that I've noticed about bees here in our area is as soon as the dearth starts, they will not build more comb. They will take water, honey water, sugar water, whatever you want to feed them. If you're supplementing your bees, what I've noticed that they will do is they'll take that honey water and they'll pack it into the cells, make it into honey, and they'll become honey bound. And then the queen doesn't have a place to lay. So what would happen is that colony would cast a swarm right in the middle of a dearth, which is a horrible time to throw a swarm. So I don't want to do too much feeding, but I'm just giving them just a little boost in order to keep this construction going that you see here. I want to keep them progressing, and once they've got everything built out and they're laying lots of eggs, the queen is really hard at work here, and when they get that comb drawn all the way down and most of this area filled, this jar is going to stay empty, and they're just going to have to forage, and then they'll dial in a little bit better to what's happening out in the real world. And that's really what you want your bees to do. So if you're a natural beekeeper, you really want to be careful about feeding. Do it judiciously, don't just throw it on them. And it does stimulate them, and it will enable them to keep going, but it could also give them a false sense of security. One other thing that I've noticed about this particular design on my new observation beehive is I've only got 2 ventilation holes, one on each side, and I guess I'll move the camera around here so you can see it. This is one of my ventilation holes here, and I've got it covered with a Swiffer wipe, but I want to peel it back here, and I want to show you what they're doing. I can't get the Swiffer wipe off because they're propolizing this screen. I've got number 8 hardware cloth here, and they're propolizing it, but boy, when I put my hand here, right here, I can feel heat coming out of it. It's almost like it's not quite like a dryer vent, but when you put your hand here, you can feel warm air coming out. And I put the Swiffer wipe here on purpose just because I didn't want too much draft on the bees, and I know from previous experience, the bees really don't want a lot of ventilation going on. In fact, it almost appears that they want none. The only ventilation they want is whatever's coming in the front door. So I put this Swiffer wipe here, but the bees are busy propolizing this all shut. They don't even want this here. So if they plug it up completely, I'm just going to leave it for them because that's what they want. It's not about what I want, it's what they want. You might be able to see the bees working right up against that hardware cloth. So I'm just going to keep that right here for now. And they'll probably go ahead and seal this whole thing off, and that's fine. That's what they want. That's what they want. So even up top where I have the honey water, they're starting to propolize that shut as well. So I'm keeping some tissues around the edge where there's a little bit of airspace so that they don't get any drafts. And even though initially I just got this 3/4 inch foam board to help keep the bees warm when I first captured them, I've been noticing that they seem to enjoy having it there. So if you have an observation beehive, I believe that this is probably a really good idea for you to do, is if you're not looking at it or showing people, just go ahead and keep some of this foam on here, just like I do. Make a little door. It doesn't have to be pretty. You could make it pretty. I just cut a piece that fits in here, and I got a little piece of tape, and I can just, take a look in there. And everybody loves doing that. So, you just come in, and in 5 minutes you can just take a look and see how they're doing, and then put it back. And you'll notice that if you leave this on, and then as soon as you remove it, you put your hand up against the glass, it's really warm to the touch. And as you know, bees love a well-insulated hive, and plexiglass really does not offer any kind of R value whatsoever. So this is really helping the bees regulate the climate inside. So I'm keeping this here all the time now. So when you see me on a video, I'll take it off and show you. And after we're done, this foam board goes right back on, and it's on both sides. And I think these bees are really liking this arrangement. So if you're thinking of doing an observation beehive, make sure you incorporate some insulation on there as well. It'll really make your bees happy. Now, one last thing I want to show you. Well, I'm sorry about the lousy lighting here, but I want to just show you this. I made this little door. It's a clean out section, so there's some screen bottom here. It's number 8 hardware cloth. And then I've got about a 3-inch space below that, and I just take off this little panel, and you can make it prettier. You can use hinges. I've just got some screws in here. It always seems like I'm fighting against time to build these things, but I made a tray in here out of corrugated plastic, and it's filled with bee garbage. You see some little bits of pollen in here. I see 1 or 2 hive beetles. And that's a real problem here in northeast Georgia. We get these hive beetles. But I filled this tray with diatomaceous earth. And I like using that or hydrolyzed lime dust. It's the same kind of thing that they line baseball fields with. So it's like a chalk dust. And what happens when the beetles fall into it, it just dries them out. and it makes it really hard for them to get out. The bees will drive them into that area. Mites will fall in here too. I don't know if I'll see any mites. Hopefully not. This is a swarm, and usually you don't see too many. So I'm going to show you the garbage. This is the bee debris that you see in here. So there's some pollen. You see some pollen flakes or pollen balls, whatever they carry it in on their legs. There's even a dead bee. I don't know how he got in here. He couldn't have got through the screen. He must have came through a different area. Right here, if the camera shows, I don't know if it will, there's a dead hive beetle. Only one so far. And you'll want to clean this out every so often. I could probably let this go for just a little while longer. The main thing you want to watch is if it starts to get hard. Oh, well, in this case it is. Look at that. When it starts to get hard and chunky like this, it's really not very effective anymore. So maybe I do need to change this out a little. I'll have to dump this outside, just throw it out, and then put in some fresh hydrolyzed lime dust or diatomaceous earth. The moisture kind of hardens it. It needs to be powdery in order for it to be effective. So yeah, I did have one section where it was a little bit chunked up together. So yeah, I think it's time to change this. I really do like this screen bottom feature. It really does make it easier to help keep everything clean. And if there's any junk underneath that tray, you can just take a little vacuum attachment and just vacuum that out and keep it nice and clean. So I've got some powder on my fingers now. It looks like I was eating some powdered donuts, but I don't want to lick my fingers. I better go, better go get cleaned up, and I'll come back and we'll finish this up. Well, I hope you enjoyed that brief update. You know, I know it wasn't much, but I just wanted to show you how much fun you can have keeping bees. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you really are enjoying beekeeping, and take time to watch and observe the bees and let them teach you. They've taught me a few things just by keeping them in the observation beehive. They've kind of reinforced what I already knew about being well insulated. They really do prefer to have this insulation here, so I keep it here now all the time, and it doesn't make a big deal if you want to take it off and show friends and family or students when they come over, show them the bees at work, but then when you're done, just put it back on. The other thing that I've also been able to observe is how much activity that's going on in here is usually a real good indicator of what's happening out in the bee yard, especially now when they're building up. So that's a great way to use it as a tool without actually having to bust into a hive, especially if it's cold and damp outside like it is today. It's just a good day to be inside and watch the bees coming and going. Something else that the bees have taught me is they're very efficient in the way they work. And one great example is if you look at the bees going in and out of the tube that goes to outside, the bees that exit will exit along the top, and the bees that are coming in from foraging will come in and they'll use the bottom section. So they've made their own traffic pattern for going in or out of the beehive. So I thought that was really interesting too. And it's little things like this that just add to the experience. So I hope that you've been able to observe and learn some things. And friends, I got to tell you something. Part of the thing that makes beekeeping so cool is when you get to talk with other beekeepers. I just can't express to you how much I really do appreciate hearing from you folks. I don't always have time to respond, but I do try to keep up. And it's just so nice when I see other beekeepers having a blast. I see families that are kind of doing this as a family fun thing together. The kids are learning, and it's so much more engaging to do something that you can, see nature at work. And I'm just glad for you that you've been able to embark on this journey too. So I hope that you have an awesome beekeeping season wherever you are in the world. And until the next video, friends, keep on enjoying beekeeping.